Okay, good evening, folks. We're going to look at chapters 8 and 9 tonight. Lesson 8, the last seal is broken. And when he broke the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven for about a half an hour. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I don't want us to just quickly pass over that. Because when the seventh seal is broken, the remaining judgments are seen. And that causes the inhabitants of heaven to remain silent for a half an hour. And let us also recall the promise that these judgments, when they would start, they would be fast and furious. The opening of the seventh seal is a most important event, confirmed by the fact that there was silence in heaven for a half an hour after it was opened. The series of 3 sevens are really included in one series of 7. That is, 7 trumpets are included under the 7th seal. The 7 bowl judgments are included under the 7th trumpet. So what we have is a single series of 7s in 3 movements. And the 7th seal is most important because it includes all the events from chapter 8, verse 1 through 19:10. And did you get that? When the 7th seal is open, the events that take place between Romans and Revelation 8:1 and 19:10 are taking place as a result of the breaking of the 7th seal. So the relationship between the seals, trumpets, and bowls, remember, 7 trumpets are included in the 7th seal. The 7 bowl judgments are included in the 7 trumpet judgments. Now, after this period of silence, there are 7 angels that are given 7 trumpets to blow. And in 8:3, there's another angel that goes to the altar with what is called a golden censer. That's some kind of a plate or a bowl that is used for the purpose of burning incense. And to this angel, much incense was given to him so that he might add it to the prayers of all the saints under the golden altar, which was before the throne. He would add these prayers onto the altar, and remember, those saints were under the altar before the throne. Now, the smoke of the incense and the prayers of the saints went up before God. And I have to believe that some of these prayers are from those individuals that we read about in chapter 6, verse 10, where he says, where they are saying, "How long, O Lord, faithful and true, will you remain from judging and avenging our blood on those who dwell on the earth?" And what I believe is that their prayer from chapter 10 is now, or chapter 6, verse 10 is now being answered in chapter 8, verse 3 and 4. Because right after this, the angel, after he had poured the incense upon the altar, then he takes that censer and dips it into the altar and throws it to the earth. It says there was thunder, lightning, and an earthquake. And the image is one of ominous anticipation of the judgment and the wrath of God that is to follow. And what happens? The 7 angels are going to start blowing their trumpets. Verse 7, the first sounded, and there came hail and fire mixed with blood, and they were thrown to the earth, and 1/3 of the earth was burned up. 1/3 of the trees were burned up, and all the green grass was burned up. So 1/3 of the ground, the trees, were burned, and all the grass was burned. The second angel blows his trumpet, and there was something sounded like a great mountain burning with fire was thrown into the sea, and 1/3 of the sea became blood, and 1/3 of the creatures which are in the sea and had life died, and 1/3 of the ships were destroyed. So whatever this burning mountain is, at first, I'm thinking of it as a meteor, but it may be something that was already here on earth that God uses at the blast of the second trumpet that causes 1/3 of the salt water to be turned to blood, killing 1/3 of the life in the sea and destroying 1/3 of the vessels of the sea. That means transportation, that means cruise ships, that anything that's out on the sea, could be people who are working, fishing for a living. And then the third trumpet blows. And it says, a great star fell from heaven, burning like a torch. And it fell on 1/3 of the rivers and of the springs and the waters. The name of the star is called Wormwood. And 1/3 of the waters became wormwood, and many men died from the waters because they were made bitter. So this is actually a star, a meteor. It has a name, wormwood, which really is poison. And 1/3 of the fresh water, 1/3 of the fresh water is turned into poison, and those who drink it die. And it says the 1/3 of the sun, the moon, and the stars are diminished. Now, what does that mean? I was thinking about this, and depending on the time of the year, the sun can get up at say 5 o'clock in the morning, and the sun can be up until around 8:30 at night. That's about 15 hours. And so 1/3 of that would be 5 hours of where the light is diminished. 5 hours or 1/3 of the night where the moon, a third of it is not shining as brightly as it is, as we see it. And you look out in the sky, some of you that live in more, whether it be rural or you just don't have a lot of street lights, of, what do they call that? I'm having a senior moment here. The light pollution, I think that's what they try to call it. So that if you don't have that and you're able to really look out at night on a cloudless night and see so many stars, that a third of that, what you're able to see, you'll not be able to see. When this, if you can imagine that a third of what you're able to see on a clear sky would not be seen. In verse 13, I looked and I heard an eagle flying in mid-heaven, saying with a loud voice, "Woe, woe, woe to those who dwell on the earth because of the remaining blasts of the trumpet of the three angels who are about to sound." When we move into chapter 9, the fifth angel sounds his trumpet, and I saw a star fall from heaven, which had fallen to earth, and the key of the bottomless pit was given to him. So this is an actual angel. And this angel, I believe, is Satan. I believe this is just a picture of him being removed from heaven, and he is used as part of the judgment. And he opens the bottomless pit, and it says, smoke went up out of the pit like the smoke of a great furnace. The sun and the air were darkened by the smoke from the pit. And out of the smoke came forth locusts upon the earth. Power was given to them as the scorpions of the earth have power, that is, in their tails. And they are told that they should not hurt the grass of the earth, nor any green thing or any tree, but only men who do not have the seal of God on their forehead. They're not permitted to kill anyone, but their torment was like that of a torment when it stings a man, and they're able to torment for 5 months. And what it says here in verse 6, in those days men will seek death and will not find it. They will long to die, but death flees from them. And it says the appearance of the locust was like horses prepared for battle. On their heads, as it were, a crown like gold. Their faces were like the face of a man, and they had hair like the hair of women. Their teeth were like the teeth of lions. They had a breastplate, like breastplates of iron, and the sound of their wings was like the sound of chariots, of many horses rushing to battle. They have tails like scorpions and sting, and in their tails is their power to hurt men for 5 months. They have a king over them, the angel of the abyss. His name in Hebrew is Abaddon. In Greek, his name is Apollyon, which means destroyer. in verse 12, the first woe is past. 2 woes are still coming after this. Now here, let's just recount. I can't tell you what these creatures look like after, even reading this. But there's something a whole lot worse than anything Stephen King ever wrote about. They're worse than anything that's come out of a Hollywood movie. And they have the power and the authority for 5 months to sting anyone who has not been sealed by God. Now, you should draw a connection with some of these judgments because they look similar to what happens in Egypt with Moses, where water is turned to blood and people crying out the darkness that was taking place. But these locusts are something completely different. Normally locusts that we are aware of, they eat everything. Literally everything. They don't leave anything alive. They eat everything green, anything that's been planted, the food crops. And we've seen plagues of locusts before in our history or in world history. But these are something different. They attack differently. Even though they have lion's teeth, they're not biting people. They're stinging them like a scorpion. And they're crying out to die, and death flees from them. And the 6th angel sounds, and I heard a voice from the 4 horns of the golden altar, which is before God, saying to the 6th angel who had a trumpet, release the 4 angels who are bound in the great river Euphrates. And the 4 angels who had been prepared for the hour and the day, the month, and the year were released, so that they might kill 1/3 of mankind. These 4 horsemen, or few, I should say, the angels who are bound at the river Euphrates, were released, and with them, look at verse 16, a number of the armies of horsemen that was 200 million. I heard the number of them. So we've just had locusts, which was the first woe. And the events after the sounding of this 5th trumpet are given considerable explanation, implying that this is a most important step in God's progressive and increasing judgments. For 5 months, they're stung, they want to die. They can't. Then you have this star that is a person, is called a he, more likely it is Satan, who's been cast out of heaven. And this individual has been given the key to what is called the bottomless pit, or the abyss, which has been the home of at least some demons who rebelled against God. In Luke 8:31, there are demons who were begging Jesus when he was sending them out of a demoniac not to send them to the abyss. And their king in 9:11 is called Abaddon in Hebrew, Apollyon, which means destroyer. Now, also, I just want to throw out to you chapter 11, verse 7, and we'll get to that in a few weeks, that the beast also comes from the abyss. They afflict everyone who doesn't have the seal of God on their foreheads. And the end result is that people who desired death, but it was not given to them. This first woe, these previous judgments are severe, but appear to be quick. The fifth trumpet lasts for 5 months. This sounds like what Jesus had called a time of great distress, these woes. Because here's the second woe. It seems to indicate a final military conflict that may be seen in Revelation 16:12-16, and in Daniel 11:40-45. John hears the voice that comes from the horns of the golden altar before God, and the voice instructs this sixth angel as he blows his trumpet to release the 4 angels bound by the river Euphrates. These angels are demons who are bound until a particular year, month, day, and hour. And the loosing of these demons resulted in the releasing or loosing of an army of 200 million. Now, China, in Time magazine, May 21st, 1965, claimed to have an army at that time of 200 million. The end result of this judgment, of the second woe, of the sixth trumpet, is that another third of the earth's population is killed. And between this judgment and the fourth seal judgment, half of the earth's population has been killed. Well, some say this is not to be taken literally. However, John says he heard the number 200 million, a 200 million man army. And I think that this number is literal, as seen in Revelation 6:12. It speaks of the Euphrates River being dried up for an army to cross, and they're called the kings of the east. Now, these are described by John as horses, but they have lions' heads, which implies something other than a natural horse. John says out of their mouth comes fire, smoke, and sulfur. Whether John is describing a modern military force or not, the point is a third of the population of humanity is dead as a result of this fifth trumpet. But look at what is so very sad. Verse 20 of chapter number 9. The rest of mankind who were not killed by these plagues did not repent of the works of their hands, so as not to worship demons and idols of gold, or of silver, or brass, and of stone, and of wood, which can neither see nor walk. And they did not repent of their murders, or of their sorceries, or of their immorality, nor their lust. Or of their theft. They did not repent of their murder, sorcery, immorality, or theft. It's absolutely dumbfounding to me that people of the earth would see such horrible judgment taking place and refuse to repent. Now, next week, we'll talk about Revelation 10 and 11, and then the seventh trumpet. I hope that you are learning. I hope that this would spur us all on to think about evangelism, to think about telling people about Jesus, so that they wouldn't have to experience this. They wouldn't live through these judgments. So that they would have a relationship with God and experience God and not be judged and sent to hell with the devil and his angels. Really, the word is not hell, it's the lake of fire. I hope you have a good rest of the week. May the Lord bless and keep you and cause his face to shine on you, be gracious unto you, and give you peace. Good night.